Esports, off to New York. We've been to Moscow. 3 weeks since we've had a major. I'm going to speak to Adam Boothe now. Adam, how are you, sir?
I'm great, Flash. Oh, do we have video of me?
Sorry?
Do we have video of... Oh, there I am. Hello.
Oh, yeah, sorry, it's all about you.
Well, I just feel like they need to cover about half your face up and show somebody a little sharper, that's all.
Yeah, a lot sharper. Especially after the night we had last night. We did our first Monday night football on the NFL live. Got up yesterday morning at 6 o'clock. Got to bed about 10, but the mind wouldn't switch off. But over 10,000 views, so thank you to all of those. So we're off to New York. We've been on the other side of the world. We've got Astralis in their favourites. And then my boys' second favourites. Now, is there value? These two are obviously what people are going to expect to meet in the final. Now, with my boys, are they from Holland or are they from America?
The Team Liquid boys are North American. They're Canadian and from the States. I think there's 2 Canadian players. So you can't... a lot of people think of them as Team America, but it's good to remember that there are 2 Canucks in there representing. So yeah, they're being called the best North American team to ever play Counter-Strike, and it's hard to debate that given the past 6 months they've had. But as we talked about, they didn't win the major, and that was a huge letdown spot for them to sort of cement their era. And so going into this tournament on home soil, there's I would like to say there's value on them. It was kind of scary how easily Astralis beat them in Berlin, but I'm shocked to see that Astralis is such a favorite coming in this weekend.
Okay, so we've got 8 teams. 4 of these teams were quarterfinalists in the last big one. What about the pressure on these front 2?
I don't think... I think there'll be a bit of pressure on Liquid to sort of at least get to the final here. I think it's unfortunate that they came up against Astralis in the quarterfinals, given that they were the slight favorites against Astralis to win the major. So I would say there's pressure on them to be in the grand finals, more so than Astralis. Other than that, though, I don't think these top 2 are going to be feeling the sort of... I mean, there's a beautiful rivalry that's developed between Liquid and Astralis for the past year and a half, and we kind of haven't had 2 mutual #1 teams in Counter-Strike for some time. So I don't see either of these teams getting significantly worse, and so for me, it might be a case. I mean, I haven't taken in the outrights, but it might be a case of you kind of just play whoever's the bigger dog on the futures markets, because that's where the value is. As I said in the article, I didn't actually take Liquid, but between them and NRG, the other North American team, I would say one of them is worth a look for a future.
Okay, well, you were kind enough to send me over all your selections. I've passed them on to the graphics. So this is the way it'll work. You run down, they keep up to speed, and I just listen. Over to you, Adam.
Yeah, so there's... The format's actually quite a good one, even though it's only 8 teams. We're seeing best of 3s straight through. Actually, I think the grand final is a best of 5. Let me just double check that. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it's a best of 5. So, the team with the best map pool in that grand final has such a significant advantage. Anyway, we'll start with the opening day matches. We've got Ence facing G2, and that's the Finnish team versus the French team. Ence went through a bit of a roster swap. We talked about them before Moscow. They looked okay, I guess. I wouldn't say they underperformed. I wouldn't say they exceeded expectations. I was pleasantly surprised with sort of some of their T sides. We still don't really have a set map pool with them. So why I've taken Ence money line as the play, because I think overall they'll be better than G2 at this tournament. And I think that even at 1.66 minus 150, there's still value there. G2 has only played 2 matches with their new player Kiyoshima. So for them, for a map pool, I expect Dust 2. Their permaban seems to be Mirage, so we'll probably see either Dust 2 from them. Ence won't ban Dust 2. And then Ence will likely pick either Train or we don't. I mean, they could pick something like Inferno as well. But I would like to see them pick Train and sort of test G2's T side there. I've taken the over 26.5 maps for that entire series, simply because when you're working with a new player, which both of these teams are, it's very difficult to have, when you switch to T side, if let's say you went 8-7 in the first half, it's very difficult to put up 8-9 consecutive rounds and without dropping a few to the CT side. So I'm expecting it to be 16-11, 16-12, even though neither team probably is in the best form. And so that was for the Ence G2 series. Moving on to Liquid versus Eunited. Eunited is a North American team that is they have some talented Pug Star players, and they have for a while. Last week, they took a map off of Liquid, which is kind of incredible because they did it in such dominant fashion. It was Liquid's best map of Overpass, and Eunited put up like 12 or 13 rounds on the CT side and kind of just ran away with it. I think that was we talked last week or a couple weeks ago about sort of having a LAN hangover, where you return to your house and you don't really perform as well. You recall that. That's sort of what I think Liquid was sort of going through a sort of a down spot after the disappointment of the major, just returning from Europe. So I'm not going to put too much weight in the fact that Eunited took a map off them. Additionally, Eunited had a player who benched himself. Actually, if it was for personal reasons or he's not clicking with his teammates, he took himself off the active roster, and so Eunited has brought in a longtime NA pro Freakazoid to be the stand-in. Again, I think Freakazoid has sort of matured as a player, and he's a bit more of a selfless player than he was in his prime. I think he'll be the type to sort of sacrifice himself, drop guns for his younger brother, who's more talented. But I don't think that would be enough to sort of say United's going to get double digits against Liquid on several maps here. So I've taken Liquid with the spread on both of the first 2 maps. Moving on to Astralis versus. Are we good so far?
Oh, yeah, you keep going.
Yeah. Okay. So we got a Danish derby here, Astralis versus Optic. Astralis, I mean, we've talked about them enough. We know why I've taken them here. They're the number 1 team. The -1.5 handicap is priced at 1.5, kind of across the board. It's 1.4 at some places. I think that should be about 1.3. Optic, they have some nice pieces. They have an experienced talent. They've got a couple guys that they've brought in that online they've kind of shown some sparks over the last few months. But if Astralis shows up ready to go, like we saw at the major, this isn't going to be close. And Optic, additionally, they have their in-game leader MSL as their sniper. He is steady. He's been doing that for, I guess, most of 2019. But he's not going to, I mean, he shouldn't drop, 30 kills on a map. The last time we saw him really do well against Astralis was at, I think it was the Malmo tournament of 2018. Was it Malmo? Maybe Stockholm. And his old team, North, beat Astralis twice, and he was the MVP of the tournament. He ended up getting kicked from his team a few weeks later. The next sort of 2 teams later, he finds himself on Optic. There's always a bit of a rivalry with these derby teams, just like you find in football. So I expect there to, be full focus. Who's the better Danish team? We know it's Astralis. Optic would have to really play out of their minds here to, cover these numbers and even to see it as value. I just don't find it. So Astralis was a straightforward play for me here. And then finally, the interesting one Well, I mean, they're all interesting, but FaZe Clan, I wrote the article early this morning, and FaZe Clan, they've gone through another series of roster swaps, and it was rumored today that they're closing in on a deal with a former #1 player in the world called Zera, who's Brazilian. And it's interesting because coldzera has never played for a non-Brazilian roster. Moving to FaZe Clan, it's full of sort of stars from all over the world, but they're sort of like, I'm sure you could think of a comparable sports team where you have all the talent you could possibly need on the squad, and yet you're tactically insufficient, or you're not getting the right coaching, or your map pool, or the egos, or whatever. It's just not fitting. And FaZe has disappointed really since the E-League Major in 2018. They've just failed to put it all together and show what they're capable of. So even coldzera hasn't been announced formally yet. He could end up being in New York for this tournament. I don't know the specifics. If he does, I'm expecting the FaZe number. It's kind of like sitting around like 2.8 to 3.0 right now. I'm expecting money to go in on FaZe with the hype of coldzera joining. So even though I've already taken NRG, if we see superior numbers come in on NRG as the coldzera rumor becomes settled, I would be willing to double up on the NRG money line here if it goes up to like a 1.5, 1.6, because just because a talented player joins a new roster, you still need to know where he's playing. He still needs to know the strats. The communication needs to be on point. He needs to. There's just so much in professional Counter-Strike now that you cannot throw even the most talented players in the world into a team and expect them to win tournaments. And NRG is a class team. They've beat FaZe before. So I already see there's value on that. If FaZe gets coldzera on the roster by this weekend, I'm still going to join NRG, and I'm feeling good about that. And yeah, so that sort of covers the opening day match bets.
Okay, and if you was just to select maybe the top 4 ones, just to like narrow it down, rather than having too much exposure on day one, give me the 4 that you went for.
Yeah, so I'm, as I've mentioned before, I do high volume betting. I try to maximize lines, which includes both the whole series and individual maps. But I understand that lots of bettors just, they want, a few bets to follow along, or just to sort of not have, 10% of their bankroll down. I understand that completely. So if you want a wager for each series, what I recommend going with is Ence money line for Ence versus G2.
Oh, do you know what price? That's at 1.66, yeah? Yeah, sorry. 1.66. It's sitting around 1.60 to 1.66, kind of across the board. I would take Liquid on their own map pick. Now, remember, I've said this before. Once the maps are released, you will see the 5.5 that we currently get on Liquid's map pick. It'll move to a 6.5, maybe even a 7.5 if it's drastic enough at your book. But if you want to, that would be sort of the pick I would go with for that series. For the Astralis versus Optic, I would take the -1.5 at 1.5 at Bet365. Again, maybe the reason I would take that over doing what we did with Liquid is maybe Optic has the skill to win a couple pistol rounds and get a backdoor cover. So taking Astralis just to close out 2-0 would be more highly probable. And finally, for the NRG, taking them to 2-0. Now, for that one, you might want to hold off if you haven't already placed it and wait to see if coldzera joins and if you can get a better price on the money line. So those are my 4, I guess. You can call them best bets, but I'm putting the same amount of units down on those as the others. Okay, Ad, listen, that is absolutely... I like that system as it goes. I say nothing, you do all the work, and then I say thank you. But the other thing is, I look and see the silver fern behind you. I hope you had a bit of the 2.5. Absolute knockers to win another World Cup for me in Japan. We're obviously talking about New Zealand. Did you have a bit of the 2.5?
No, I didn't take any of the outrights, but Eric, Oblivion Sports, the racing guy, we've been betting every match since the opening day, and I am up 20 units flat betting 1 unit stakes. So it has been a riot. I love waking up and starting my days that way. You can also, I'm not a rugby tipster. I've been betting it since the 2011 World Cup though. So you can always check to see what I'm on or Eric's on, or read Russ's articles. We've been checking in to see what he's on as well with those. So yeah, we'll be following along, Flash.
Well, I wouldn't go any further than the Kiwis. The All Blacks, they are the governors, and it'll be a travesty if they're not lifting another World Cup. Ad, listen, love your work, mate. Come on, Team Liquid. Good luck with all your bets, and I'll see you soon.